Hello and welcome to After Hours with Jimmy Thistle. This is going to be the first episode of my new podcast. It's about addiction and subsequent recovery, and just really some stories of people in recovery, long-term recovery, early-term recovery, and people that are involved in the business of supporting people and getting them help and supporting them. Tonight we have Joe, who's a very good friend of mine, who I met, well, probably within my first couple of weeks, if not days, of getting sober for the last time. And she was a great help to me at the time, and subsequently become a very good close friend of mine, and is just an inspiration to other people. She has 10 years under her belt, and she started off as a peer mentor, and now she is a community support worker for a charity on the Isle of Man called Motivate. This is the first recording. My equipment's not fantastic, so we did record it in a little cafe in Douglas, Isle of Man, called Windsor Cafe, which is a fab little place. It's open till 10 o'clock, so instead of going for a beer, you can go and have a coffee till late on. So we chose to go in there, and as I say, there's a little bit of sound in the background, a few kind of plates clattering, but I think it works and it adds a little bit of ambience to it. There is a few moments where I kind of asked Jo to repeat herself, or maybe I haven't heard her. It's not because I wasn't listening; it was really just because of the volume in the place. But I think as a first episode, it kind of works. So, I'll speak again at the end of the episode and see what we all think. But for now, enjoy my chat with Jo.
That's quite off-putting.
Is it? What, the little... You can put it over there then.
Then I can pretend it's not
Then you can pretend it's not there. And I've got questions, but they're more like prompts.
As opposed to
Interview. Like, that's what I've been calling it, but it's not really an interview. It's more just a chat from old friends. Anyway, so, Jo, welcome to episode number 1 of...
my first?
Yeah, you're the first.
Woohoo!
Of After Hours with me, Jimmy Thistle. What do you think of the title, After Hours?
Sounds mysterious and sophisticated.
Yeah, and obviously it's got that kind of alcohol, drug connotation, but for me, like, the After Hours part and all that.
Absolutely.
For me, it was more like after the boozing, after the addiction. So it's got that kind of, I think, really clever kind of double meaning behind it.
Well, yes, it's very clever.
Yeah. So Jo, we've been friends now for nearly 5 years.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Pretty much since you came back to the island.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, which will be 5 years in August, but this isn't about me. It's about you, Jo. So, tell me, I hate that question, a little bit about yourself.
I hate that question
but
too.
Like, tell me, so how long have you been sober now?
So I got my 10-year sober birthday in September last year, so September 24. So that is the longest stretch of sobriety.
So that's 10 years. Well done on that. I mean, that's amazing. Like, you're obviously an inspiration to... You were an inspiration to me right at the beginning, so you must have been 5 years when I was literally zero.
When you were rattling in the corner.
Rattling in the corner, not saying a word, and then...
That didn't last long though, did it?
Didn't last long at all. So, at what age did you start on this kind of path?
So I would think...
Not the sobriety path, sorry.
The whole path. The whole previous career.
Yeah, going back to the beginning, if you want to call it the career.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is a career.
I made a career out of it. So probably in my mid-teens, discovered alcohol gave you confidence, and I thought I was particularly shy, and went with it. It made me feel like I could talk to people that I wouldn't have talked to before. I liked that it gave me the buzz and the confidence, but that didn't really last very long. And I would say by the time I was at university, I would have, looking back at the time, didn't realise because everybody's drinking. But I would say that it was, my drinking was problematic from that point.
Okay.
Easily.
From what, university time back then?
Yeah.
And like, what were your kind of habits then? Did you have like a main group of people that you would go out with, or?
I think going to university, obviously you've got freedom, independence. So the girls who I was living in a flat with, who I was put into a flat with because it was like semi-formal.
Yeah.
We all used to go out because it was £1 a pint or 50p a pint in Leeds on a Wednesday night.
50p a pint? What year are we talking? Sorry.
94?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
When I went to Leeds.
50p a pint. I mean, it's a no-brainer, isn't it, when you're at uni? Like, and this is the thing, why is it so rammed down our throats? Anyway, I'll get into that later, but yeah, so you were obviously enjoying that, the big life, the high life at uni.
Loved it, loved university.
Yeah.
My twin brother, came with me to Leeds. We both went to Leeds, we both planned it, so we went to Leeds. Although he veered off more down the weed path.
Okay, yeah.
So, so I kind of went, whilst I was at university, from just going out to looking back, drinking at home in secret, not particularly sociable.
This was at uni?
This was as the years progressed.
Yeah.
My third year at Leeds, I went to Milan University.
Okay, oh yeah.
To do...
I mean, I did know that, but I'll pretend for the sake of the podcast that I don't know anything about
that was a really good surprise.
Right, okay. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
So it was my degree, which was Latin and Ancient Greek, in Italian. And it was a great experience. I had lots of adventures, came back with an Italian fiance, blah, blah. But when I was living there, that's when I started buying the boxes of wine.
Yeah.
So in Italian supermarkets, you can buy cartons of wine for, I don't know, price of a pint in a Leeds club, 50p.
Yeah. And the thing with the boxes, you don't really, you can't judge what you're drinking. Do you know what I mean? I think there's like 3.5, 4 bottles in a box.
Well, these were, if you imagine like a fruit juice carton.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
like
that sort of size.
Yeah,
like a Tetra Pak.
Milk carton, yeah.
Yeah. So that was, and also that is really easy to dispose of. So you haven't got the bottle. They squash right down flat. So already the whole hiding it, buying in bulk, all that sort of stuff, those behaviours that I now know are problematic, they were creeping in. But
yeah. And if I might say, like, quite early, the kind of secretive. So obviously, did you know at that point that, like, I think from my own experience, when I started hiding things and lying about it, that was when I realised there was an issue there. Because obviously, if you didn't want people to know, you had that shame, that guilt with it.
Of course.
Yeah.
I don't think I did realise. I think that it would become my coping mechanism by that point. And being in Milan without my twin, with people, there was only one other person on my course, a chap called Andrew, who I'm still friends with, and he was living in a house with some other lads from university, from Milan University. So there was a lot of anxiety. Looking back again, it's all looking back.
And the language barrier, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah. I can speak Italian, but it's a whole different thing being taught how to get by to having proper connecting conversations with people. So, and I had a few horrendous things happen, like I got evicted in the middle of the night and all sorts of, and I got, I think that I got, when I was out drinking with somebody, that I got spiked because of some things that happened, and but I only realised that later. But not to blame myself for it, but I did put myself in vulnerable situations with people because of drinking, with people that I didn't know and shouldn't have trusted.
But I suppose we're a bit more, or you would hope that people are a bit more savvy these days with that. But I think back in like the 90s and early noughties, they were a bit more blasé about things like who you went out with.
Known either. It wasn't as
being spiked wasn't, definitely. I mean, I think the first time I heard about someone being spiked was when I lived in Aberdeen, so that would have been 97, 98. And it was like very few and far between. It was mostly something you'd hear in the movies. So did you kind of wake up the next day and think, I've had a blackout, I must have been spiked? Or how did you kind of put two and two together?
Now, I can't exactly remember where I was, but I remember that I was like out on some kind of a date thing with this handsome Italian chap, not the one I got engaged to. And I remember feeling weird and not just drunk.
Yeah.
And I think it was, I'm going to get the name wrong, which given my current job is probably not a very good advertisement. Is it GHB?
GHB, yeah, I believe so. I think it's like GBH, but like flipped around. Yeah, I'm not sure what it stands for, but it is GHB. Yeah.
So I remember him driving me home, and I remember blacking out in the car and lolling around the car and being sick, and I didn't hear from him again.
But he took you home.
He did.
And had you only had like a few drinks at this point?
Can't remember.
You can't remember?
Can't remember.
Wow. I mean, like, obviously so thankful that, because it could have been 10 times worse. Wow. Mm-hmm. And then when you got back from Italy...
Yeah, that, again, my drinking was escalating.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to excuse it, but when I got back from Italy, so that was the end of the third year of university, everybody who I'd been at university with, my brother included, had left. Right. So I came back to do my final year, everybody had gone, which is really strange.
And I guess difficult to make, because you're not in the freshers year type thing, freshers week, to meet new people. By the time you're back, you're what, in fourth year? Fourth year. So like everybody else that's starting's got their groups. So then you're on your own essentially again.
Like starting again.
Yeah.
And I had to find like a house share and with people that I didn't know.
Yeah, and
which all worked out fine, but it was still stressful.
Of course it is, and especially when as you say, you've got anxiety and a bit shyness. I'm guessing, don't want to put words in your mouth, but the easiest thing from my experience to get to know people is go out on a night out with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course. And in the university lifestyle, that's completely socially acceptable.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what... Like, I went to uni when I was 31, 32. Like, done college, did all that, and then I went to university at 31, 32, and I got involved in the Freshers' Week, because, like I was a drinker then as well. Mm-hmm. But I just couldn't believe how, like I loved it, because I wasn't questioning drinking like I do now, but back then it was just the done thing. Do you know what I mean? It was like getting handed out flyers, and it was like, get like, a free pint with this voucher, this coupon, whatever, Like, do you remember a thing called Snap Packs? It was a thing we had in Scotland, and it was like all of these concertina bits of paper that would snap together with magnets. So each side of it, each other's outside bit was like metal magnets. So all the paper inside was like a voucher or coupons. So you would go in like that, and you would get it stamped wherever you were and then you'd snap it back together. You put it in your wallet. And it was just all booze. I think there was a few meals, maybe some McDonald's, but it was mostly just drink. And it was like, if you didn't have your snap facts, then you were paying full price for booze. So when did your I mean, obviously continue on with your story, but when did you? So we live in the Isle of Man now, and then when did you move here? Was that long after university, or
not really.
No.
So I graduated 98,
right?
and I was still living in a shared house, so still living the student lifestyle, and I was working at there was like a kind of like a big co-op type thing.
Yeah.
Off license.
Yeah.
Food.
Everything you need.
Actually, exactly. And I had worked in various stores and been promoted up whilst I was at university. So I was assistant manager of one that I was working at. So and then they gave me a new store to be assistant manager at.
Okay.
Which is really nice. But I was drinking, so it was late nights and early mornings and shift sort of thing, but not like sort of overnight.
Anti-social hours. It's like working in a pub. So
yeah, exactly. So at that point, I would have been drinking every single day without fail.
What age are we here? About
22, 23.
Okay.
I would say.
And you're drinking every day.
I remember that I did have a month off. Kind of one of those. I must have realised that there was a problem, because I thought.
So you were questioning it and going, I should probably have like a month off or something. Yeah.
So I did, and I remember looking back, given the amount I was drinking, given the advice that we give people about not going cold turkey, that was a really stupid thing to do. But I lived to tell the tale. So
sorry, when you say you were drinking every day at that point, what would have been what you were drinking?
I was
like wine or
cider at that point.
Cider,
so
right.
Classy.
Yeah.
And
what brand, if you don't mind me asking? Like.
Well, I wasn't quite on the
K cider.
It wasn't the white stuff. It wasn't
White Lightning
like Frosty Jack or any of them.
Jack. Wow, yeah.
But it wasn't far off.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
okay.
I mean, Perry Dare probably go for a bit strongbow, you know.
Yeah. Classic strongbow. Yeah. Dry Blackthorn or whatever. That was a northern one, was it?
Yeah, Dry Blackthorn. Yeah. Whatever. I used to have bottles everywhere.
But enough to get a buzz on an evening. Yeah, you weren't just like having a few cans. It was enough to get.
Oh no! I'd be.
You were binging basically.
Yeah. But if you can binge, if it's every.
Well, that's true, because it is. Yeah, I always get that confused. So binging to me is like an amount, but it's not. It's more a binge is when you do it
in
all
a night.
At once.
Yes.
Yeah. In like a condensed.
Yeah. Like all your units in one night, kind of a thing.
But you were probably having all your units
in a couple of hours.
Every night. Yeah.
So I did have that month off, and I didn't find it, from what I remember, too bad.
What, to abstain? Yeah. And did you feel, I know it's probably a long time ago, but do you think you felt any better from it?
I think I don't really remember. I remember that wondering what I was going to do without drinking. And
like past time, like what are you going to do? Are you going to...
So I bought like sort of fizzy drinks and things to kind of replace the alcohol. I don't remember feeling massively better. I don't really remember feeling like I had loads of free time or anything like that. But once I had finished the month, and because I had managed a month without drinking, that was my green light to carry on, because that carried me for years, the fact that I'd given up without too many problems for a month. So therefore I'm fine, aren't I?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that old chestnut. Like,
isn't it?
You can do it, so it's a green light to just crack on, carry on as you were. And you did.
And I did.
Yeah.
So then when I was 23, so it's about a year after graduation, I went up to Carlisle to see a friend of mine who was studying up there. Met Andrew.
Who's your now husband?
Who's my now husband. Yeah. So that was in 1999, the October. By the June 2000, which is in retrospect rather quick, I was moved over to the Isle of Man.
I mean, it is quick, but it's what who you to question love? Yeah, yeah.
But I do remember thinking I'm going to have to start behaving myself when I move over, because I was moving. Not only was I moving to have man, and starting an office job for a bank, like the proper grown-up shit, but I was also moving in with him. So I knew then that I'd have to hide, get a handle on the drinking.
See, now this is. I mean, I know we talk about, drinking and our kind of experienced our careers in the past, but this is new to me. So you were literally setting out your kind of, how am I going to hide this right from the start? Wow. Okay. And what were your kind of?
Well, we were living in a very small flat, so the hiding opportunities were somewhat limited.
Yeah.
But
I just asked because I want to know if there are any similar ones to what I did, And I don't want any of the listeners to think that this is like,
it's not tips.
It's not tips on how to hide stuff. No, this is just, it's not. I mean, it is a shameful thing, but it still makes me laugh. Like, I think I told you I watched the Outrun, the film with Saoirse Ronan by Amy Liptrop, which we will watch again at some point when you get a free chance. But there was a scene in that, and I think I told you, and I was at the cinema with Jen, and she looked over at me and she was like, looked at me because I was just kind of smiling. That there's a scene in the film where she goes behind the stem of the sink while her boyfriend's downstairs, and she just glugs it before she can actually converse with him. And that was the same as me, and that's where I hid stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Were you at stem of the sink,
gal? I don't remember that, but I did used to have in the flat behind the sofa.
Right.
So we had a tiny flat, but we did have some sort of boxes and stuff behind the sofa, so I could hide. Still on cider by that point.
Yeah. No.
Cans I could hide.
And see, to me, my brain is just going, well, you're hiding a lot of cans behind the sofa, aren't you?
I think the whole moving over here and moving in with someone, I think probably curtailed my drinking a little bit. I think circumstances probably meant that I was back down to some sort of normal level. But we used to go out Friday night, Saturday night after work, all with Andrew's friends, because I moved over here knowing nobody at all. And it's really hard to make friends as a grown-up. Really hard. So that was...
And the Isle of Man's a small place, so it's quite tough at the beginning to make friends, I guess.
It is, I think, especially if your only connection is that you're coming in with, like on the tails of a banksman, as my dad said.
Yeah.
If you know other connections to the island,
that's you kind of you're relying on one person to take you out, and then that's their friends, and and it's difficult when you're in a partnership like that as well.
So I think looking back again, that was probably not emotionally particularly healthy, and I was quite dependent on Andrew for social interaction and what have you. So then, that was. So when I was 20, so a year later, bought our house, which opened up the possibilities for hiding places.
More space, more room.
More space.
Yeah.
To hide, and the house was not open plan like our house is now. It was one of those with a kitchen and a separate dining room and a separate lounge, like I could be cooking.
Yeah.
Of an evening, and Andrew be in the lounge or whatever, and nobody to check up.
Yeah. And I suppose, I don't know if you're like me, but like when you're cooking, I always maybe had a beer on the go or some wine because you needed wine for cooking. So it'd be like some for the spag bol, a glass for me.
Yeah, a bottle for me. Please.
Bottle for me, yeah. So, you could have 3 or 4 bottles. And I mean, for me, I would be drinking wine, but then I would have vodka hidden in the cereal boxes. So,
indeed. Or the washing machine was a favourite of mine when I got to my vodka stage. And the freezer.
Because Andrew would never use the washing machine.
I still won't, so 25 years later.
Yeah. Doesn't even know how to open the door.
Pathologically scared of.
Yeah.
And the freezer because it doesn't cook.
Well, if you're doing the majority of the cooking as well, then, and plus there is hiding places in there. If you put it behind all the veg, Nobody's going to go in there.
It's safe.
Especially when we were in our 20s. It's like, what? You hide behind potatoes.
So, the next sort of milestone I can really remember is that I started to get into trouble with work.
Right.
So I got pulled in front of a manager a few times about smelling of alcohol. All done very tactfully and everything.
And was there a sense of concern from them, or was it just more like, we're giving you a telling off here?
Bit of both.
Bit of both. Okay, well that's quite good.
I would say.
Yeah. And we're talking like early noughties here.
We're talking. Oh, when was Charlie born? 2007. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got married in. Now I don't actually know the year. If it was 20 years last year, that's 2004, isn't it? I got married. I always have to ask Andrew.
Yeah, 2004.
So I remember that I was signed off sick shortly after I got married.
Okay.
Because of drinking.
So they'd obviously questioned you, and then you'd taken a kind of mental health break type thing?
Yeah. So I went to the doctors.
Right, okay.
And said I can't cope.
Yeah.
I didn't mention the drinking, but I said I'm drinking more than I should.
You mentioned that to the doctor.
But I blamed work and stress and being bullied at work, because there was a particularly toxic work culture in the bank that I was working in, with a lot of what would now be called sexual harassment. But at that point, it was just banter.
It was just banter. Yep.
So lots of older, middle-aged, middle managers who were all men.
Who've been there for 20 odd years, so it's their kind of domain, and they can get to do what they want or they think they can.
Exactly.
I'm glad a lot of that has changed now, but I mean, you know, when I first came over here in 2008, I worked for a bank as well, and it was, you know, I know a lot of people say, oh, my industry has a massive drinking culture. It does seem to be every industry, but I know back then the banking world, and it still is now, there's a lot of money there, so there is a lot of like take clients out for, you know, schmoozing and all that. So it's like fine wines, meals and drinks and it's, you know, and then but I wasn't up at that level. I was just like in the call centre, but it was still a massive drinking culture with us where I was.
They used to have a thing about going to the Outback actually on a Friday, and kind of like the people who went to the Outback at 5:30 on a Friday were the people who were like in with the managers and sort of like, you know, and they were the people who were going to get promoted, and that was kind of like that's how it seemed that was
the natural progression.
Yeah.
See, the thing with me was I wasn't like I would do quite well, and then I would move up, and I did quite well at that point, and then my drinking kind of escalated, and so I was I knew a lot of people in those kind of groups, and then I would go out, and I was kind of just on the cusp of it, but then I'd go out and make an absolute tit of myself on a night out, and I never got to that level, do you know what I mean? Because I kept on, they were like, we don't want to touch this guy, because he's clearly volatile, and he's an idiot, Thanks, Joe. But no, that was it. So, so you were in that crew.
I wasn't. No, but that was how it. That was how you
got promoted. Yeah. Which is sad, because like it's almost like you know, when people used to go out for a fag and all the decisions would be made while you're out for a smoke.
Yeah.
And if you didn't smoke, then you weren't part of that. And it's the same thing, you know.
I mean, I
was a smoker and a drinker, but I never got promoted. So I don't know what was going
wrong there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got married.
Yep. And then got signed off. The bullying had been going on for a long, long time, but I didn't, because it was the first office job that I had. I didn't realise that it was actually not okay, and it was the men with the sexist stuff, but the women were really really nasty as well. There was lots of things. There's no sisterhood anymore, if there ever was. Women, which probably is jealousy because they're all older than me and like picking on me because I was the younger. I don't know, whatever, their problem. It was my problem at the time, but the way they behaved is their problem.
Yeah, they have to live with themselves, but you had to deal with it at that point in your life. Yeah.
But I couldn't because I didn't have witnesses or I hadn't made a note of times and dates and what was said and everything. There was nothing that I could do about it, which is, So then, what age would I be now? 28? So then, at one point, around this time, after I was married, before I had children, I had a seizure.
Right. At 28?
Excuse me. So I must have been 28, 29 maybe.
And you're pretty sure this was alcohol-related seizure?
Absolutely, it was.
Yeah. So what had you been abstinent and withdrawal, or just too much?
And this is something that I draw upon in work, because what happened to me wasn't the typical going cold turkey day 3 thing. So I was signed off work for a long period, and so I was drinking every day.
Yeah.
And we were having a barbecue. My husband was unaware of the extent. We were having a barbecue for friends, and I remember thinking it was an all-day drinking kind of thing, and I remember thinking I'd better slow down and pace myself because this is an all-day and into the evening thing.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be able to last.
Yeah, you need to pace yourself. Yeah.
So I remember thinking, slow down, and I remember looking up to the sky and seeing the sun and the blue sky, and then nothing else. And all I could just hear voices from that point on. So I was having a seizure. So not nice for anybody to see, but particularly not for Andrew, who doesn't deal well with medical things in the best of times. But I remember, so they called an ambulance, and I remember the paramedics coming and checking me over, but I remember them saying, "Is she an alcoholic? Is she an alcoholic?"
This is when you were coming through.
I could just hear them. I couldn't see anything. I couldn't. So I was out really, but I could hear them saying, and I could hear some of our friends saying, "No, of course not. Of course she's not." And I said, inside my head, I said, "Of course I fucking am." Yeah. Like, how can you not know?
But you were. That was just in your head.
It was just in my head. Yeah.
So you knew then,
Yeah.
And that was at 28. Wow.
So got carted off to hospital, got detoxed in hospital, had hallucinations, really vivid.
So this was up at Nobles. How long did they keep you in for?
I think it was about 5 days.
Right.
I don't remember very much of it. Apparently, Angie was up visiting, but I don't remember. And then came my first period of sobriety.
Wow. So this was Librium dosage up at the hospital.
Yeah.
Full detox, obviously complete abstinence, and then dare I ask, how long did you do?
I remember doing 3 months because they'd done liver tests and stuff while I was in hospital, and obviously my liver was
enzymes were
slightly a little bit battered. And then I went back to see the consultant after 3 months of not drinking.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "Well, you're lucky. All of your things have gone. All your levels have gone back to normal. So just remember," he said, "just stick to the NHS guidelines for drinking from now on." And I said to Andrew on the way out, "How absolutely ridiculous! He's just I'm clearly an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And he's just told me to go back drinking, but to stick within the NHS guidelines."
And it just baffles me still to this day that's kind of like what they're telling you at the hospitals and the doctors. They're going by what the bottles say. Just drink responsibly and you'll be fine. Do what we tell you and drink exactly what we do. But you're actually saying, "Listen, no, I'm an alcoholic. I've got a problem here." And so did you start seeking out any kind of external help? Was there any external help on the island at that point? Apart from obviously AA.
The AA comes later in my story, and only briefly. But I did go and see Kay at, it wasn't Motivate then, they were called Alcohol Advisory Service.
Yeah.
So it's quite amusing because Kay's my manager now.
Yeah, but was that the original incarnation of Motivate?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So Thea would have been there in the background.
Yeah.
And I went to see, I dried out, I got back to work, and I remember going up to see Kay. Work gave me time off to go up to see Kay, to my appointments with Kay. So I must have told them at some point. And my last session with Kay coincided with the day that I found out I was pregnant with Charlie.
Right.
And Charlie is 18 on Saturday.
He's 18 on Saturday, so let me do the maths. That's 2007. Yeah. Okay. Fast math. Right.
Well, 2006, because I was
obviously
pregnant.
9 months. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
damn it, I didn't do that math. So that was when you'd finished the 90 days.
I can't remember how long it was.
Right, I thought you said 3 months, but
I definitely did. I did longer than 3 months because I remember going back when I went back to see the consultant after 3 months. That was when he said, "Just speak sensibly now."
Yeah.
And I remember saying to Angie,
Yeah.
So Kay at some point as well, either after that or during that time, and then had Charlie.
And had you been trying for a baby, or was it just kind of?
I don't think I was in any fit state.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, but
trying,
it just kind of happened.
But as I got better.
Yeah. Well, I suppose this is what happens, isn't it? It's like your body starts to go, okay, we can cope with things now. We can do this now. Yeah.
And I did go back to see Kay when Charlie was a baby.
Yeah,
so all over her.
I'm guessing you did 9 months.
Yeah, didn't drink. Obviously, while I was pregnant.
Which is crazy because like I hear so many on different podcasts, and I was listening to one today, Sober Dave, and there was 2 different women on different episodes, and both massive drinkers, but managed to stop for those 9 months. And what one of them said was, which is really interesting, it's amazing how we're willing to stop for 9 months because we don't want to damage our unborn child, and yet once that's happened, we go straight back to poisoning ourselves.
Exactly.
And it's just fascinating.
Like,
we don't matter. Yeah. But that's kind of what it'll damage your unborn baby. Well, if it's damaging that, how's it not damaging me?
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, why is that's fine to you, but not to an unborn child?
Because you've got the choice, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And the baby hasn't.
Yeah, and babies can't buy booze, so they don't want to market to them just yet.
Although I'm sure somebody will try.
Absolutely.
So then I had Charlie, and I remember at this point I was 31 when I had Charlie, and I was doing very, very controlled occasional drinking, and I wouldn't advise it to anybody because of what happened to me later on, but the occasional G&T before dinner, an occasional drink when we were out for dinner, but very occasional, mostly alcohol-free drinks, because I've always gone ever since I was dried out in hospital.
Yeah, which is very good because, I mean, I've got a book here with some notes and questions and things, but obviously we're free-flowing here. But one of them was, did you feel that you were ever kind of sucked into that mummy wine culture, like mummy wine o'clock? Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. No, not
okay.
Really, because
might not have been as prevalent then. It's more maybe something that's kind of creeping up on us now, that this kind of...
Or pre-COVID, it certainly was.
Yeah.
But I was well into sobriety at that point. So then I had another baby.
Yeah.
Who is 15 now.
Yeah.
And so still not drinking. And when she was about...
And so, sorry, but those little few times where you've had a drink, gin and tonic here and there, nothing has escalated to any problematic drinking between baby 1 and baby 2.
No, because I was either, for that stretch of time, I was either pregnant or breastfeeding.
Yeah, okay. So you're being sensible and yeah.
And then Mills was about 2 and a bit, and starting to wean off breastfeeding, and I got the news that my gran had died. We were having a dinner party that night.
Oh.
So I was really, really close to my gran.
Yeah.
My mum's mum, in a lot of ways, she was more of the mother figure to me than my real mother.
Right.
Had a very difficult relationship with my actual mother. So it really did feel like the bottom had fallen out of my world. So I had my family, my husband, but
you've just lost someone that's like super important in your life. One of the most important people, and of course that's going to be traumatic.
It was really horrible, and I was going to say I'm not blaming Angie. Actually, I am blaming him, because the way that he handled it meant that my grief was unrecognised, not acknowledged, and not validated. So it was all pushed under the carpet, because we were having this dinner party, so some good friends of ours were coming around, and he said to me, did I want him to cancel the dinner party? And I said, no, because I've made all the food, can't waste food. So they come round, and I was feeding Mills to sleep, and I could hear him answering the door to them as they came in. And he said to our friend, just to let you know, Joe's gran's died, so don't say anything, don't mention anything, we don't want to upset her. So that evening carried on with my husband and my friends behaving like nothing had happened.
And I'm not in the situation, but would they have said anything like, how's your grandma? Had you not said anything? Probably.
I think.
Did they know that she wasn't well, or? But also, your grandma's just died. Someone coming in and saying, "Listen, thank you for putting this night on and still going ahead with it. But we're really, really sorry. Anything you need, let us know."
Yeah, just the usual platitude.
Absolutely, rather than just completely ignoring the whole thing, right?
Yeah. So I opened the wine.
So So
I could, those feelings, because feelings are behind everything. Feelings are behind all behaviours. And so the feelings that I wasn't being allowed to feel at that point, that night, I had to, because I had to carry on, I drank, and that's it.
All bets are off.
Yeah. So the whole controlled drinking in the middle only worked up to a point. I hadn't done any work about how to cope when something big, like a big trigger, happened.
Yeah. And it's like, looking back, you were just pressing the, excuse my language, fuck it button, because, you thought, well, nobody's caring about me, so why should I care about me type thing, and then just go for it.
Yeah.
But it's almost like that whole thing where you're almost doing it, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for me, that was my kind of attitude. When somebody did something to me, I was like, I'll show you. I'll show you by drinking myself into oblivion.
And then you'll be sorry.
And then you'll be sorry.
How did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, terribly, obviously. Yeah. So that was the kind of.
That was my
did
last.
Did it ramp up? Did
oh my
time?
Gosh,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that was like over a space of about 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
I was detoxed. I would drink. I would be found. Andrew would go mad. I would be dragged to the doctors because clearly I just need to take some tablets to make me better.
Yeah.
But he was out of his depth. He hadn't got a clue. I would go on trips away and never leave the airport hotel because I would be drunk by that point.
Yeah.
Just chaotic and terrible and carnage, really. And I would sober up for a month or two, wait, and I would think to myself, I'll just wait for all this fuss of people telling me off and whatever, and taking alcohol out of the house and everything. Wait for this to calm down, and then I'll control it better.
You'll get a handle on it.
Yeah. I'll be better next time.
Yeah.
Never. Well, how about not? How about like not drinking again? That would have been like a more
because
plan to have.
You'd kind of done that, and you proved to yourself that you could do it.
So
and now this was your time. And hell mend anyone that was going to take your drinking time away from you.
I do remember feeling at that point that I was like stuck in a square cell. So like I would wake up feeling dreadful, shaking, dry retching, all of that. So tremors, so withdrawals essentially.
Yeah.
And I needed a drink to function. So I would have to be necking something first thing. And then I would kind of just top up during the day to function. And then as soon as Andrew got back from work and there was another responsible adult in the house for the children, like you said, all bets are off.
Yeah. Well, this is essentially part of, as far as my understanding of the mummy wine culture, it's not all necessarily mums going out and drinking together. It's that whole, I've been looking after the baby all day, so now the husband's taking the baby, and now it's my turn to have release and get away with it. I'm relinquishing the responsibility to you, and now I'm going to go and get myself quietly messed up.
Yeah.
So to me, that's kind of the other side of the mummy wine culture thing as well. So
definitely secretive, and so not an openly wine o'clock kind of a house, but all very secretive. And I remember thinking while I was stuck in this square cell that I was getting through the day by topping up until I could drink and have enough to drink so that I would feel normal again.
Yeah. What time did you start at?
5:30.
5:30.
When Andrew got back.
Yeah. But feeling absolutely miserable all morning.
Awful.
Lunchtime day. Yeah.
Awful. And then you'd have about 20 minutes of relative sort of ease when you drank enough to get rid of the withdrawals.
Yeah.
Before you got absolutely shit-faced.
Yeah. And I'm guessing you'd be staying up later than Andrew, and the kids are in bed, and you can just sit and watch telly and quietly slip
he would
into
go to bed,
oblivion.
and I would be up. And I also started going out with some girlfriends and smoking. So I started smoking again.
So when did you quit smoking? When you got pregnant?
When I was, when I found out I was pregnant with Charlie.
Yeah, okay.
So back on the fags and the booze.
I bet you felt like an absolute queen.
Yeah.
Just loving life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Living my best life.
No one's going to tell me what I can and can't do. Yeah. And how did that work out for you?
Well, not the best, I have to say. So at that point, at one of the many times when I was found with an empty bottles and carried off to the doctors and detoxed at home and what have you, I was told about smart meetings that had just started up at Motivate. So I've never been, I felt I had to go because I was being badgered to go. I've never been so scared in my entire life. When Andrew dropped me off at 6:30 on a Wednesday night, and this was at Rosemary House, something true. Do you remember? I know that was before your time.
I never went to that one. I went when it was in the church, but it's just round the corner, isn't it? Near the Rosemount.
Smart meeting.
Oh no, sorry, AA.
Yeah, not AA. So this is when Motivate.
This was smart, right?
So I went, and I will never forget how scared I was going in. And my main fear, like many people before they come to a meeting, is small island. There's still that stigma.
Yeah.
What if I see somebody I know? And it took me a good couple of years before I realised that if I was to see somebody that I knew in that meeting, they would be there for the same reason that I was.
Exactly.
I mean,
this is what we try and tell people, but they don't seem to get it. If someone else is doing the similar thing to you, then they're doing it because they're in the same pickle as you,
Exactly.
and there's no shame. And at the end of the day, like I've told people in the past, like there's been a few people that I've known in meetings and stuff, and they've, like, for example, one was a teacher, but he was completely wanting to keep it anonymous and all that, and I get it because of the stigma. But if you take a step back and you think, well, to be fair, he had quite a few years of recovery time, and he's probably a better employee than a lot of the other, teachers that are going home at the night because the little darlings have been absolute shit, so they're drowning their sorrows with a bottle of wine and coming in the next morning hanging out their arse. So, where do we draw the line on this in society? It's a bit of a strange, like, if you've got that stigma on you, and things are changing, thanks to like people like you who shout about it.
Yeah.
It's but it's still taking its time. There is still that stigma, which is quite sad.
I'm still selective about who I tell the whole story to.
Yeah.
And my go-to phrase is now that I'm in recovery, as opposed to specifying any sort of putting any sort of other label on myself. So, because recovery covers a multitude of sins, does it not?
Say again.
Recovery covers a multitude of sins.
It does. Well, this is what I was going to say. Do you use the term? I know you've used it a few times in this chat.
I don't say alcoholic.
You don't say alcoholic, because I don't. I mean, I did at the time when I went to AA. It was like, my name's Jimmy and I'm an alcoholic. Or I went to NA, CA, my name's Jimmy and I'm an addict. And you do it, and I was completely in that mindset at that time. But now that I'm kind of away from those meetings and we've got like 4.5 years under my belt, it's like that is no longer what I am, because to be an alcoholic or an addict is someone who is dependent in active addiction and they're dependent on that substance. I'm not, I'm in recovery. But there's two camps. One's an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. I don't personally believe that. But I'm in recovery. I'll always use that because I think that's a good.
Yeah, that sits well with me.
Yeah.
And I don't use alcoholic in any other. If I've not said the word alcoholic for several years before this chat, so and it was only because that was the vocabulary that was being used at that point.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like people know where you're at, but I'm like you. I don't use the words to describe myself. I use it as a one kind of term catch-all type thing. But I do find it quite a kind of derogatory term.
I think it has got negative connotations.
It does. And so when you started there, and is that you since then? That was the start of the 10 years?
So it took about a year, I think, of going to meetings and relapsing a lot and learning as I went on how to cope and how to learn from your relapses and identify triggers, all the stuff that we do, we teach in SMART.
Yeah.
And
all the tools.
Then I finally had my last drink when I got shit-faced on a yoga holiday in Benidorm, because if you're going to end it classy.
Absolutely, on a beach.
No, locked in my hotel room.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just.
Yeah.
With the whole family there?
No. This was just me by myself on a yoga retreat.
Of course, health and well-being. Yeah.
With a girlfriend who I used to go to yoga with, who knew my husband. We used to work together years ago, so known her for 25 years. And she then, because I'd locked myself in and was drinking myself stupid and wouldn't answer the door, she had to get the hotel to come and break the door down, or new key card, whatever, to get in. I don't remember any of this, but I do remember that when she came in, she was clearing out alcohol from the room, and she kept opening cupboards and she kept saying, "Bloody hell, you're good at this, aren't you?" Because she was finding more stuff.
How long had you been in there for?
A couple of days.
Wow. Had you come out at all to go and get more booze? Or?
No, I made sure I got enough.
So you were hunkering down, batten down the hatches?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how I thought I was going to sober up by myself and get on the plane to go back. I don't know what excuses I was going to make to people I was on the yoga retreat with. Nothing.
You probably just thought you were just going to stay there for a while. and just carry on regardless what you're doing.
Yep.
And to hell with anyone that tried to stop you. So, what do you think it was that kind of turned you on to drinking?
I'd say there's lots and lots of things. I don't think I wouldn't describe my childhood as being particularly traumatic. There's a theories nowadays abound about that it's got to be childhood trauma. I had a normal middle class upbringing, but my mother, I would always blame my mother if I could, but she's got dementia now, so it's a bit unfair. But she was very critical and very pushy, and I was pressured to do well at school, but I was academically bright anyway. My brother and I have interesting conversations now about how he felt growing up, because he felt pushed to one side because all the pressure and all the attention went on to me because I was the one who was academically blah, blah, blah. So a lot of it is my mum wanting a better life for me than she had, but that's her shit, not mine.
Yeah.
But
then almost, and I know that you and your brother are very close, but like almost like putting you at odds against each other.
Which didn't
from his
work.
point of view, yeah, which is good. I mean, it's even tougher for twins, normal for normal siblings.
Because you're even more compared as well.
Yeah.
Because you haven't got the excuse of being older or younger.
Yeah.
You can say so and so's whichever child is doing whatever when they're younger.
Yeah, I mean, I should have learned by example from my brother, but I didn't. Yeah.
I think you're doing fine by yourself.
Thank you. And so, what form did recovery take for you then? So you started going to SMART,
learning about how to cope with life, learning the tools that you need to cope with feelings that lead to triggers, that lead to relapsing, hearing about everybody else's story, realising that I wasn't alone was a massive, massive thing. Realising that there were other people there who really understood what addiction is like and who were all helping each other to work towards recovery, whatever stage of the journey people were at. So it did take me about a year to get properly sober, and that was when I had my last drink on the yoga retreat. I did not intend that to be my last drink.
And that's the thing, a lot of people don't know it's going to be their last drink. Some do. Did I? Yeah, I think I knew because it was the last. Basically I'd had a drink and then I was in hospital getting Librium. So I kind of, it wasn't a last drink where it was like, right, this is my last drink, I must make it count. I was basically drinking at that point to stave off the withdrawal, and then it was like, right, I'm going to have this drink in the house, and then I'm going to quickly get to Nobles and get on the Librium to stave off the withdrawal. So it wasn't a nice final drink. I've had many final drinks thinking it was going to be my final drink, but it never was. Anyway, so
I was still thinking, right, well, I'll let everything die down for the next couple of months and then I'll control it better. That was still my mindset when I had that last drink. But yeah, then. And
did you have to get a medical detox that time coming back from Benidorm?
No, I didn't.
You just white knuckled it?
Yeah. I probably had about 5 or 6 detoxes, including in hospital and mostly at home.
Yeah.
Over the course of my career.
Oh, so like cold turkey detoxes, or medically and just detoxes at home?
Medically.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are quite fortunate and lucky over here that, like, my first detox was in a rehab facility, which wasn't cheap, and that was the first time I'd had a medical detox. And then the second time, the final time, was at Nobles, which in the UK they don't give that out willy nilly.
It's becoming less common here. Yeah. I mean, they will detox you in A&E if you're admitted. They will detox because they kind of have to.
Yeah.
There used to be a 10-bed detox facility at the drug and alcohol team. I don't think that's still a thing. They do detoxes from home now. I don't think Andrew used to take me to the doctors and he would be prescribed the diazepam, the Librium, and we're told how much to give me.
Oh, wow.
And so he used to administer it to me and
Yeah.
take me to the loo and all that sort of thing, because I was on my hands and knees most of the time at various points. And but now it seems to be only through the drug and alcohol.
Because I think, from my experience in the meetings and that, some people were just going out on mad week-long benders and then going up to Nobles for a detox so you can get to work on the Monday. I mean, that's obviously, a very black and white version of it, but there was a lot of people doing that, so I can see why they're kind of like, well, no, you've been in here 4 times in the past 6 months. So
yeah, come on.
why are we going to keep giving you a detox if you're not going to stick
It's very much treating the symptoms, isn't it, as opposed to the root cause of the problem.
Absolutely. And so, Joe, now you're still a peer mentor. You did a training through Motivate. Are you?
So now,
what's your actual title now?
My actual job title is I am still a trainee because I will be a trainee until I've completed my drug and alcohol professional accreditation.
Cool.
Which we're about 2/3 the way through now.
Wow.
So then I will just be a recovery support worker.
That's amazing. So proud of you. This is awesome. And so, like, I know you'd be amazing at it, and you must be helping so many people. How do you feel that you're doing with that, and what does it mean with your recovery as well?
The one thing that is very, very different is that I no longer go to the meetings, to the SMART meetings. However, I help to run them.
Yeah, sure.
So I've jumped across the desk, so to speak. And the people who are still going to the meetings, who I was with them. So I've been working to Motivate for 18 months.
Yeah.
Nearly. When I was a peer mentor for about 6 months before that. So it's coming up to 2 years in February, I think it'll be.
I can't believe it's that long. Time has just flown past.
But I absolutely love what I do. And I do say when I meet clients, I do make a point of telling them that I am a worker by experience. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of us now on the team at Motivate who are workers by experience, and it does seem to really help people knowing that you've been there.
Yeah, like from my point of view, back when I was trying to get sober and get into recovery, I didn't want to listen to anyone that hadn't been there before, and it was a bit of a kind of cheeky attitude from my point of view, but it was just the way I was. I was like, well, if you've not been here, how do you know how I'm feeling and what I'm going through?
That's really, really common. Yeah. A lot of people really, you can be as qualified as you like, but nothing, you will never understand what it's like unless you've been there, and you just can't.
Exactly. You got to walk in the shoes, and so I think that, this is the way forward for a lot of, recovery support, because, it's people that have been there and they have the empathy and the knowledge and the experience.
And the non-judgmental, that's the thing, because, and people then feel, once they know that you've been where they are, they can then, it's building a therapeutic relationship as well. There's the trust there, and they know that they can tell you anything about whereabouts they are and what they're doing. And they know there's not going to be any judgment, because I've done it too.
Yeah,
can't shock me.
No, exactly. That's
you can't give me any other hiding places that I hadn't already used.
Yeah. And then that's going to, as you say, let them open up. And and so do you feel like, I think we're very blessed over here. We do have a lot of the resources that they don't have in the UK. We're a small island, so we're kind of lucky in that respect. We don't have a massive population, but I feel, from my experience when I was in the UK and still in active addiction, there wasn't that much help there at all unless you were paying through your nose for it. So we are very lucky here. Do you feel like that you need more resources? I mean, obviously you must need more resources, but
always.
But
I think that it's because we have a charity, and we are, I think, are we tier 2 on the medical sort of hierarchy? So 1 up from primary care, and drug and alcohol was a tier 3. So we tend to take what who that don't deem to be suitable for their remit. A lot of it is early intervention. A lot of it is people who haven't quite got to that point where they are actively addicted or feel that they are, but they recognise it's problematic, so they're coming to seek help early, which is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, would you call that? I think people use the term grey area drinkers. I mean, not everyone is as bad as like you were or I was.
But if we can stop people from getting to that point.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is the thing that people don't realise, that it is a drug. It's a highly addictive drug, and it doesn't matter if you're only having one bottle of Prosecco on a Friday night. You're still going to get some form of withdrawal.
Absolutely.
When you don't have it the following Friday night, so it's like, it's like, maybe not as rattling as you and I were, but people need to understand that they are dealing with a kind of highly addictive drug. So do you feel that society's attitude is changing towards alcohol?
So. I think so. I think that young people aren't drinking as much. There's been a marked shift. Unfortunately, some of them are swinging more towards drugs now, which has got its own issues. But
would you say weed or coke?
Coke is a massive problem over
MDMA,
here. So is weed. Although a lot of people are getting it prescribed now, so at least it's legal.
Yeah, and I mean, when it comes to weed, and I've known people that have sought addiction help from just weed, and at first I was like, oh, it's just a bit of weed, but it was affecting their life, and that is the problem. If you feel that any substance is negatively affecting your life, then it's a problem. Yeah, absolutely. So if someone's smoking weed and they're not, doing what they're supposed to be doing,
without it, or can't socialise without it, anything that is impacting your life and your relationships and your ability to function, then that's your problem, isn't it? That is, definitely.
So I was thinking this the other day, and I was like, I don't really go to bars anymore, but you might have an understanding from people you're working with. Are people cutting people off at the bar? Do you know what I mean? Like if you've had too many drinks, because this was never a thing back in the day. People would still be getting served right up until they were falling over, falling out of bar. And I think that is something that needs to kind of be addressed in pubs and clubs. Do you know what I mean? If they're still serving someone when they're clearly pissed, not paralytic, they're probably still serving them, but like when they've got a bit of an attitude on and this, that, and the other. Things I bring that up because I saw a meme the other day, and it was like a little slip of paper that was handed to someone in a bar, and it basically said, "You are being cut off.
Yes, I've seen it.
Please leave quietly. Don't cause a scene. You're welcome back, but you're being cut off."
Yeah.
And
I saw that and I thought, genius.
That is genius. Yeah. So there's not like, because I think some people, if they're clearly getting cut off, they're drunk, and then if they're being told at the bar in front of friends or this, that, and the other, of course they're going to get their back up. It's going to be an issue.
You've got the shame and you've got anger and frustration and all that, which is going to come out more because they're drunk.
Yeah.
And it has always been, and I believe it still is, illegal to serve somebody who is intoxicated.
Absolutely. Like you wouldn't walk into a shop. I mean, I've been served in a shop when I clearly wasn't.
Really shouldn't have
been. But I'd go into the shop and they would give me a bottle of vodka then, and it was like, because they just want to get shot. They don't care.
What it's always got me is alcohol being served at petrol stations.
That was my go-to, and it was a 24-hour.
Yep.
So like here we're quite lucky. I think we've only got one 24-hour in the whole island.
There's only the one down on Peel Road.
But like there was I'd make pilgrimages to the Tesco's at like 3 a.m, or my 24-hour garage. I've been in there in dressing gown and slippers, getting wine.
So you're classy too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was like, because I wasn't caring. Do you know what I mean? I didn't care what people thought as long as I could get what I needed.
At that point, that's what you need, and nothing else matters.
Yeah, nothing else matters at all. So, I mean, thank you, Joe. I mean, it's probably a good place to kind of leave it now. But what I will say or ask you is, how do you feel like you've changed and grown as a person since getting sober?
I feel like I'm a proper, actual, fully formed human being now. Yeah. I think when I was drinking, it was a shell of who I am. I feel like as I am now in my 50th year, that my life is better than it's. Don't make that face at me.
You don't look
Oh, bless you.
day
Over 49.
47.
But I can do everything that I want to do. The only thing that I can't do is drink alcohol. And I'm choosing not to drink alcohol. That's the mindset, that it's my choice.
And then when it comes down to it, I don't know about you, but with me, it's like, do you know what? It doesn't bother me anymore. Like, I'm so far out of it. Like, never say never, but I feel comfortable enough to say never, you know. And I don't think I will ever do it. And I certainly, obviously, Christmas has just been, and we have these, like, booze aisles and advertising everywhere, which, again, that's a story for a conversation for another day. The fact that they regulate themselves and the government's not involved. But I do get little thoughts like, oh, it pops into the brain and be like, oh, it'd be nice to have a Bailey's or never drank Bailey's, I don't know why I said that. Do you know what I mean? Like a glass of wine or a beer or whatever. But then I think, why? What would I get out of that? Because for me, drinking was to get completely annihilated. I wouldn't drink because I wanted to have a glass of wine or two. I had to get completely.
So one wouldn't be enough.
No.
I don't want one glass of wine. I wouldn't do anything.
I wouldn't exercise. And for me, like people say, oh, well, I like the taste of wine. That's fine. I like the taste of alcohol. So, like, I would drink straight gin, I would drink straight vodka because it was the alcohol that I craved. You know, it wasn't I liked the taste of it, it was that felt like it was doing something to me.
Hitting the spot.
Hitting the spot. Okay, well, let's draw to a close there. I will post all your details, obviously your address and all that, but do you know what I mean? Do you want people to know your Instagram or anything? I know you're quite private in that, so I don't have to do that.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Only because I don't really do Instagram.
No, I didn't think you did.
And I do a bit of. I've got a work profile on Facebook, but.
So we'll talk about that afterwards. Well, that's been amazing, Joe. Thank you so much for your time today. And,
thank you for having me. Thank you for buying me chai.
It's been my absolute pleasure. And so thank you. See you soon. So that was Joe. Amazing story, and you know, as I say, I've known Joe for 5 years nearly, and as I say, there's some bits that I'd not heard of her story. So, you know, thanks again to Joe for sharing her story with us, you know, and just having a candid chat with me. It was really informative, and I think, you know, I think people can take a lot from that. 10 years can seem daunting to someone just starting out, but you know, I think by sharing these stories and, you know, going back to the kind of beginning of the journey and the share, really does, excuse me, help people to kind of get a grasp on where they can end up. You know, they can get, you know, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. So I think these stories are really kind of beneficial for people who are just starting out. As I say, the sound, I'm not sure what people think of it. I'm hopefully going to get, well, I'll try and do some, you know, in a less crowded environment. If anyone's got any suggestions for kind of better kit, you know, on a kind of shoestring here, but we will kind of hopefully upgrade that as time goes along. We need to think of a name for you guys as well. You know, people that are listening to the podcast. What about Earlings? You know, after hours with Jimmy Thistle. And the people that listen are called the Hourlings. Who knows? Anyway, please subscribe and share if you think anyone's struggling or needs to listen to these stories. So yeah, I'm on Instagram as Recovery Jimmy. I do have a YouTube channel. I'll post links on there. Yeah, that's kind of it for now. As I say, it's the first episode, so hit me back with you know, your thoughts, what things you'd like to hear. Just really kind of suggestions. I'm open to kind of letting this kind of be organic, and hopefully it'll grow and just develop into a really awesome podcast for people who are, you know, sober curious, or they're in recovery, or they're just really finding issues with their alcohol habits and behaviours. So yeah, but that's it for now. So stay strong and stay supportive and stay sober. Thanks. Bye, guys.